for life engineering, processes that combine science, wisdom, and spirituality to build a life of alignment. Joining Dr. Pat is your host, Gabriela Embon, bringing you bi-weekly wisdom nuggets, your step-by-step guidance to build a life of no regrets. Stay tuned as they uncover powerful processes for you to realize your true potential. Are you ready for some magic wisdom? Life engineering starts now.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is another fabulous episode, and this actually stemmed from talking about the power of yes. So here's where we are. Gabriela has done a fabulous series, but let me ask the question. What do you do with the word no? And what do you do with that word? How do you react to it? Is this something that could happen energetically? When I say no, or I say no, how do you feel? What do you experience today? This is a groundbreaking breakthrough episode because when you hear no, there are like 50 shades of no. There is like, oh, we're not going to accept your application to school. Oh, no, I don't think I'll marry you. Oh, right? All of those things, Gabriela, right? They're all part of one big giant egg, a Humpty Dumpty that sits on the wall. And we look at the word no as if Humpty Dumpty falls off and you cannot put it together, right?
That's right. Look, we started with the power of yes because everybody likes the yes. It has a very positive connotation, but we don't like the no so much, right? So much fun to say yes, not so much to say no. We have a harder times, but we can talk about the power of yes without talking about the power of no. So definitely. No, say no is actually really important. It's the other side of the coin, of course, of saying yes. So we cover one side and now we want to cover the second part. And there's a high price when we have a hard time saying no. Yes, most people have a hard time saying no. We're going to dive into why is it important? Why do we have a hard time and how to do it? We're going to give strategies on how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's important because when we can say no, we usually overcommit. We can run into burnout. We have extra stress. It's really a loss of personal identity, and loss of personal identity for sure leads to low self-esteem. So usually when we have a hard time saying no, that's more of a coping mechanism. We'll talk more about that. But saying no, it's part of asserting our own identity. And that's critical for a healthy and balanced self-esteem. And look, the creation was made by separating, right? First the skies from the earth and the waters and the light and the dark. And separation is the process of creation. So yes, the physical world was separated. We have physical boundaries. We're all connected, but your body is not attached to mine. We're separated. But we also have to learn how to set energetic boundaries, not just physical boundaries.
Yeah. You know what I love about this? Let me ask you a question because this is really important. You know, I knew we were going to do this show today, so I'm always aware, like 2 days before. I'm always aware.
You always have great stories.
But because I get ready for shows, right? And so I knew we were going to talk about this. So now I'm observing myself. Can I tell you what happened really quickly? And I want you to comment on it because it's the hard part about saying no, I think has to do with what it feels like when people say no to us sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. And I know we're going to talk about that. But something really simple. I was out playing my sport last night. You always have to ask people to play. And I just got done with a really good match. And I walk up to this gentleman and I ask him to play. Now, clearly there's a language difference. But he was going to play with me. But ultimately he didn't. And you know, what's interesting is I got a little story around that, which I have no idea whether it's true or not. But you see, whether it's yes or no, don't we create stories in our mind as to what the meaning is for each of those? Even when we say no to somebody, we create a story.
We have to, because the story helps us justify it. So we have to. We feel we have to. It's not right. But that's because it helps us justify the answer so we can accept it. We have a hard time accepting without justifying situations. That's our logical mind. I need to understand why. And if I don't know, I need to create a story, because if I don't have a story, I might as well view it as rejection. A story helps me cope with it, helps me accept it sometimes and not see it as personal rejection, but okay, is because they are ... and it's not about me. So the stories truly help us accept, but no is a full sentence. It doesn't need further explanation, right? And we'll talk more about that. So yeah, definitely. The stories is it's the huge part, and it's probably the part we want to let go, right? Because if we don't know how to say no to ourselves, and we don't know how to say no to other people, we also don't know how to say no to ourselves. So if I can't say no to you, I won't be able to say no to me. And how does saying no to me look like in a healthy way? No, I'm not going to eat the entire cake, although I really feel like it. No, I'm not going to have a third glass of wine, although I really feel like it. That's saying no to myself. But if I don't know how to say no to other people, then I will overcompensate by saying yes to myself for everything, which is, of course, unhealthy, because it is unhealthy for me to say, yes, have the entire cake. Yes, have the entire bottle. So it has a ripple effect. That lack of ease saying no to others has a ripple effect on ourselves too. Also means that I'm not having direction. Lack of no is lack of direction. And lack of direction means that I'm a really passive manifestor. We're always manifesting, but I might not be manifesting what I want because there's no clear direction. So, it's very important that we exercise the power we were given, and we were created with free will. Yes. And that is exercised through the yeses, through responses. And part of the responses sometimes are the no.
Yeah. These are game changers. So let's talk about this and strategies for how to help people, because they're game changers. Part of this too is if you say a yes and you don't show up for the yes, that affects the entire relationship of stuff, right?
That's right.
It breaks down trust. So the art of saying no is so important, because you're being very clear. And then to also understand, there's a difference between no and not yet. There's a difference between no and no but. And so you have to be very clear in your own sense of consciousness when no means no, right? But if we can be that clear, then we will not damage a relationship built on trust. Now, you may hurt. Now, saying no to somebody doesn't mean you're not going to hurt their feelings, but it's clean, you see? Is that a good word?
That's right. You know where you're standing.
Know where you're standing.
You can trust that person, because if they say yes, but you know that they probably didn't want to, or they're doing it out of obligation, and tomorrow you're going to basically pay the price of seeing someone, extended overtired or under pressure, you don't really trust their word, right? So it helps, absolutely helps build a bond of trust when you're clear and you make yourself clear, you make yourself understood. But society conditions says that a good person is a selfless person, right? And a selfless person is somebody who says yes all the time. But look, being generous is a virtue. I'm not saying it's not. I'm all for it. And it can be also a superpower, right? But if kindness, generosity, and nourishing other becomes also an extreme, a coping mechanism, you do it to compensate for something else, then every virtue can be in alignment or can be in the negative side of it. We don't want to be in the negative polarity of that virtue. And the negative polarity is when you're using that virtue, and even your gift. Some people have a gift of being generous and nourishing others. You don't want to take that gift and use it as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, look, you have to know, I'm sorry, I come from like a mom that's got country roots. So she was always full of things, and she would say, you got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. that's a card analogy, playing cards, right? When you fold them, you're out. It's a no. It's a no for you, right? When you hold them, you're still in the game. You're a yes. You may be different shades of yes, but you're still there. And there are things that get in the way. Now, there are so many things that get in the way, but we do want to help and please other people. And saying no is one of the hardest things to do, especially around people we love. Now, the other part of this that I want you to talk about is, because you got to help us strategy, say no. Your boss says to you, I was just getting ready to ask Emily to do something here before you came on. And when your boss, and I've worked for bosses, when your boss says something to you, I would never say no to Bob Davis. I worked for Bob Davis. He was my mentor. It was very difficult for me to say no. But I didn't feel like I wanted to say no, even though one time I worked 36 hours straight, you see? So we have to learn discernment with what we really want. What do we really want?
That's right. We have to build discernment. And we also have to understand that the energy in which we say no is the energy it's received. It's not really the no, but the energy behind it. If you say no as a way of solving a problem, it's a coping mechanism, right? You are at the extreme that you don't know how you say yes to everything, right? You do that to compensate for fear. You do that to compensate for lack of self-esteem. You do that to compensate for, the feeling of not belonging or being abandoned. So if you use it as a coping mechanism to compensate for something else, you're basically solving a problem, creating another problem. And you need to be prepared and aware. That's the first step. Become aware what's the energy behind your no. And that's when the change actually happens. Because once you're aware, okay, I am saying no, but I'm actually doing that because I don't want to deal with the guilt, or I don't want to deal with the fear of that person not loving me anymore, or my boss not giving me the promotion, or not thinking I'm the best or their favorite. Once you become aware of that, then you can change it. So it's not really about the no, it's the energy behind it. Does it make sense?
Does make sense, because first of all, everything is energy, and energy has a tendency to stick. It has a sticky factor, right? And what I mean by that is that whatever it is we put out, it isn't just the words, it is the energy behind the words. And both the thought, the verbalization of it, and the energy behind it, they're what I call the sticky factor of decision making. Even though you may say yes, your energy is like, holy, no way do I want to do that. I do not want to go to that baseball game. No, I don't want to go to Seattle in the middle of traffic. I don't want to sit in crowds of people. I'm really afraid that blah, blah, blah. Should I wear a mask? I mean, this is what goes on. And you say yes anyway. And then you go. And unless you can change your deal, this, like all of this, unless you can change that, anybody going to want to be around you at that baseball game, Gabriela?
No, people can feel your energy. Absolutely. The best that you can do is be clear, because when you're clear and you act from that place of clarity, authenticity, alignment, then you create a ripple effect of certainty around you. People know where they're standing. People trust you. And that's huge. If you ask me, that's huge. Yeah. So there are a few strategies to say no. So we started with the first one is have the discernment that you are put to say yes out of fear or guilt. And ask yourself, if I didn't have these emotions, would I say yes? What would I do if I was not that? They'll be upset at me. They won't invite me again. Like, oh, I don't want to say no, because what if they don't invite me again? They won't include me next time. So that's the first step. Have the discernment. What would you answer if you didn't have these feelings? The second step is to trust your decision authority. I think every person should check their human design. It's free. You can do that online. And as part of that, how are you designed to make decisions? For me, is my sacral. So I really check with my body, with my gut. What is my body saying? How is my body responding to this situation? Whether it's your instinct, your body, your emotions, check with that. And realize that no is a full sentence. And the shorter you make it, the better, the less response you're going to get from the other side. Simply no.
Yeah. Let's just be very clear. No is a full sentence that ends with a period, not a
Yes.
question mark. I just want to be very clear about that, right? Because no is a full sentence, but it's like, it's not, no, it's not that.
Not a question and not even an exclamation mark.
No,
just a period.
Yep.
That's right. And I think the most important part, once you become aware that you feel the pull to say yes out of fear or guilt or doubt, but you should say no, is to truly separate your emotions from the actions. You can feel the fear, the inadequacy, the insecurity. You can feel all of that and still say no and still do the right thing, right? Again, we want to separate. One is at the level of the mind or the emotions. The other one is at the level of action. Separate them. You don't have to feel okay with it before you do it. Just do it. And that is going to train your brain.
Yeah. Can you say that again? Because I want people to hear a word you said. You don't have to feel before you say it. Let's just be very clear. Because there's a feeling before you say it and there's a feeling after it, for whether you say yes or no. And that is so important because we may have anxiety. It may be very difficult for us to say no to things, right? It's never been more difficult, for people that are in the workplace to say no to a boss, a coworker, and even more importantly, to a client. And, there's that feeling before, but after you say it, the difference between the way you feel after versus before is going to have to do with what you're sharing with strategies today. Because if we follow the strategies, we will feel better, not worse, than after. That's what I think.
I'm going to share it. Absolutely. And sometimes we freak out after we said no. We said no. Okay, we were feeling the fear of saying no, but we still did it. Congratulations on that. And now you're still freaking out. It's okay. The more you practice that, the more you realize the stories you have created in your mind are just stories. They're not the absolute truth, right? So it's okay to do that. It's okay to also feel what you're feeling. What is not okay is for you to say yes when you know the right answer is no. That's not okay, because now you made a misaligned choice. As long as it's in your thought, it's not a choice. But the moment it became a choice, you acted on it. That's when you get into alignment or misalignment through your actions, not with your emotions. And if you can master that, if you can have that discernment and master that self-regulation, which is very important to master self-regulation, then you'll realize that's how you start changing your habits. And you also want to practice saying no in low-risk situations when the fear is not so big. The more you practice that, the more you teach your brain that it's totally okay to say that. And don't expect people to give you permission to say no. That's the worst, right? I'm waiting for them to say it's okay for me. No, they might actually not say it's okay.
No.
Some people might actually push back because they're used to you saying yes.
Yeah. Can we stay with this for a minute? Because you said something that we never do. Never do it. Don't even think about doing it. You can practice this with a buddy. Really. The best person for me to ever practice with is Linda, because she's a little tough, right? So she's going to be like, listen, Linda, no, I really don't want to go do this. Why don't you want to go do it? Okay, so it isn't just about saying no. It's understanding the strategy. When somebody just will not let you, do you understand what I'm saying? But if you practice this, you can learn these strategies and techniques. I mean, you and I are not saying this is easy, are we? I'm not. Are
No,
you?
not at
Oh,
all.
okay. Okay. Just checking.
But I'm gonna at the end, I'm gonna share what's the price, because it's nothing I think that we have talked about. But let me tell you a story. I think I was working with a client who has a hard time saying no, and it's affecting her health and her energy. So she says, but if I say no, I won't be a good person, right? She was conditioned that saying yes makes you a nice, good person. So I said, you know what, let's look at it differently. Okay. If you had a money problem and you had debt, you were in debt, and people come and ask you for money, would you say yes? And she said, no, because if I have debt, I don't have the money, I won't say yes. I said, that's right. And if you actually end up giving money when you don't have and you increase your debt, you might actually risk ending in bankruptcy, correct? She said, yes. I said, okay, perfect. Now let's think of your energy as money. When you say yes, you're taking energy from your bank account. Your body is your bank account, right? If you don't know how to say no, you're going to create an energy deficit. You're going to get energetically indebted as well. And then you might risk getting an energy bankruptcy, which is not fun. You don't want that, because energy bankruptcy means that now you truly affected your health. Or something has to go wrong badly for you to realize you cannot keep saying yes to everybody, and now it's your time to receive. You don't want to get there. You want to avoid that. So if you think of your energy as money and you don't have that money, same as you wouldn't give money you don't have and increase your debt, what would you give energy you don't have? Why would you create energy debt, energy deficit? And then I could see that actually made sense for her. But with money, it's easy because we see numbers. We see measure
numbers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can see the numbers. We know exactly what we have. We see the numbers going up and down. With energy, it's harder because we can measure it. Well, we can feel it, but we don't have the numbers. But if you had a battery attached to us, that would be so much easier, right? It will be a decision maker. I have my battery attached to me. It tells me when I can say yes, when I can say no. Imagine if we have an alignment meter attached to us that tell us if what we're doing is in alignment or not. Life will be easier, but less interesting, less exciting, because we wouldn't learn.
Yeah. But I think what you're talking about, Gabriela, what you're talking about, we all know. Let's just give people a couple of reminders here about the energetic bankruptcy part of this, because when we're talking about this, and I'd like to hear your perspective, I feel things in a couple of places in my body, right? When I'm forcing a yes, I will tend to rub my temples of my head. I mean, it's a sign. Like I'm an awful poker player, right? But I might do that, right? Some people do this cross, right? Are those things to be aware of, especially if we're so unaware of ourselves? There are other things we can pay attention to of how we are in the moment, especially if we're pressured, right? That's a form of energy. Me doing this temple thing, I tend to tap. I'm a tapper. I've been a tapper since I was a kid. So I may start tapping on the desk. I won't do it during the show, but you can hear that, right? I may start doing that, or there's some other things I do with my hands. These are all parts of how we can catch ourselves, because we're holding our breath is what we're doing.
We're holding, and you can even feel like you are taking a step back, even if you're not literally taking a step back. The tone of your voice is almost like you say yes, but you're pulling back. When you say yes, are in alignment, you say yes. It's a genuine response. But when you say yes out of obligation, when you should say no, or out of a lack of alignment, you can feel yourself pulling back, right? And if your instinct is a strong way you make your authority to make decisions, you can hear that voice. And people say, how do I differentiate the voice of my instinct with the voice of fear? It's very clear. If you should say no, you're going to have a voice that tells you, don't do that. If it's your fear, which is the same organ, it's the spleen, it's a splenic energy center, it will say like this, don't do that because then they will ... So when it's a clear no, as I said, no is a full sentence, that's your instinct. But when it justifies itself, it's explaining itself, it's attaching a story, that's a fear. And that's how do you differentiate the two. So sometimes I'm about to do something and I can hear my instinct telling me, don't do that, don't say yes. And it's almost as if, like a movie, like a movie that it catches me in the doing, and then I listen to that instinct. Yeah. But it's a practice. So and that's the most important. We have to become aware. We have to. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't help but think about something you said earlier. There are consequences and opportunities. Can you talk about that? I want to make sure we get those across to people on what we meant when we said there are consequences, and I said opportunities. But I think we have to understand that no matter what we choose, yes or no, there are outcomes associated with that could have even long term. So can you talk to that? Because this is really the takeaway for people to understand what's happening and how this could impact your future, your present.
Yesterday I was driving in the evening. I was coming back from going to a book launch of a friend. And the car in front of me was driving so slow. And somebody behind me became impatient and decided to, it was a straight line. You couldn't do that. They decided to go around. And I thought to myself, what if this car is driving so slow because God wants me to slow down? Because if I don't, a few blocks ahead, I might get caught up in a car accident. And while I wasn't impatient, but the car behind me was. And what if this is exactly the perfect situation for me right now? So the problem when we have a hard time saying no to others, we also have a hard time accepting no. As you said, that's very true. The easier it is for us to accept is also to say it. We also have a hard time accepting no from divine guidance. Sometimes divine guidance tells you no. I'm speaking at the speaker slam next week, but I applied for the previous talk and they said, no, we don't have, we have one, we're waiting for the response. And I so wanted to talk at that one. And when the answer was no, how do you take it? How do you take a no from the universe? How do you take no from divine? So if you understand that everything, even the no from another person, is not really the person, it's divine guiding the situation, telling you no. When you learn to accept no and say no, you understand that everything is perfectly coordinated through yeses and nos. Why would you disrupt that beautiful balance and divine guidance and divine intervention and divine providence? So if no, meaning you don't get home faster because the car in front of you is driving at 30 kilometers an hour when it's not that zone, it was like a 50 zone, that's okay. That's the no you need to accept now.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, this is so powerful. I mean, we've done a whole series on yes, and I want to get back to your advice. I mean, you gave us ways for us to understand a strategy. And I can't emphasize enough, it's a muscle. It's like a muscle in your body. Like you got a muscle and you're trying to build that muscle. You have to use the muscle to build it. So your suggestion to practice is brilliant. Even if you talk to your dog, you will feel the energy, right? You'll feel energy of things. I mean, I have watched people with their dogs begging for food at a picnic struggle to say the word no to their dog. Imagine what that feels like. But the consequence sometimes in life of not knowing how to say no can last for a lifetime with you. Like accepting a wedding or accepting a marriage vow, accepting moving in with somebody, accepting a job you don't want, accepting your boss slowly over time, sucking the life out of you. I mean, we can go on. If you can't say no, you're disempowering yourself, aren't you?
Absolutely. You're disempowering yourself, you're creating lack of direction, and you're not exercising your free will. So it's okay to do that and to feel the consequences. So now you know how the yes feels like. As long as we learn and practice and become really aware and use that discernment for the next time. So we improve every day a little bit. It's
Okay,
not
I
an
love it.
overnight. Nothing is
I love it.
overnight.
So I hope you're going to get ready to do an episode on not yet. Gabriela, Gabriela, I'm telling you, I knew I'd be ready. Thank you so much for today. Again, tell people how they can find out more about you, and please tell them about your book.
Oh, the book is available on Amazon, Becoming a Power Couple. Yeah, they can search my name on Amazon, and they can also find it on gabrielaembon.com.
Thank you so much for today. Very, very, very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pat.
All right. For those of you out there, practice, practice. Two of us know what it takes to practice this. We'll see y'all next time.
You have been listening to Life Engineering, processes that combine science, wisdom, and spirituality to create a life of alignment on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Join host Gabriela Embon and Dr. Pat every first and third Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific for bi-weekly wisdom nuggets on how to create your perfect synergy between your mind, body, and spirit in order to realize your true potential. For more information, visit Gabriela at coachingacademy.net.